Hello, I am Lucy Baldwin. Welcome back to the Seven Living with the Planets. In this episode, I am talking about bringing magic into your everyday life and bringing your everyday life into magic because um, magic is more than just doing rituals and casting spells. I never use that language, but um, being a magician or a witch or whatever you want, however you think of yourself, it's much bigger than just um, this thing that we do on the side. And then, um, yeah, it's not separate. It doesn't have to be just like this separate thing that we put in a box over here. And we do that sometimes, but then we just go back to normal ways of being because magic is about a process of growing your own self, growing your mind. Magic is something that you do to yourself to change yourself, to reflect the reality that you want to be existing in. So, we're affecting change on ourselves, on our own mind, our own psyche, and then that is reflecting out into the world and or reflecting back on us. So, when we think about magic, we often, we think of it as this like fantasy magic where we're going to like cast a spell and then some kind of like mysterious forces in the universe that we don't understand yet are going to act on the outside world and that is going to change what's happening. And to some degree that is what happens. I mean, there is an element of that for sure. There are absolutely unknown forces in this reality that we don't understand that are acting on us at all times and that we are in a dance and in constant conversation with that we can only sort of understand and relate to through our lived experience, if that makes any sense. But what I'm trying to say here is that you can do so much more with it when you think of it in this bigger way. You can do so much more because there magic can be an identity. Like, for a lot of people, I know it's just like, "I'm a witch," that's just how they feel. They just feel like they're a witch. And I really believe, and this is part of why I do this podcast, why I do the work that I do, because my mission is to help people understand the power that you have over your own mind, the power that you have over your own experience, your own reality, and to so that we can reclaim our power, our sovereignty, as humans, as individuals. And the lens that I use for that is magic because magic is really effective. Um, and so some of us just have this inherent, like, we identify as being these magical people with special abilities and who are in tune with, in relationship with these unseen, unknown forces that exist within our reality. And we kind of know, we have a felt sense or felt intuition that um science isn't telling the whole story, isn't that's not the whole picture, and that there's more going on than meets the eye. And so and of course there has to be because science is a methodology for asking questions and testing hypotheses. And there is just there are some really big questions that some of them have a lot of hypotheses, like what is a mind, what is a mind, how is it related to the brain? We don't know. There are definitely some hypotheses. Have any of those ever been like successfully proven? No, not even close. We have no way of measuring mind. We don't even know what it is. To me, it feels as though it is the most fundamental thing that exists. It feels as though it is the single most true thing that exists. Everything else could just be an illusion and probably is an illusion of our mind. Our collective mind is creating the illusion of the material world. And that illusion, there's certain laws that definitely seem to exist within that material world that we're imagining. And oh gosh, I don't want to go down. I'm starting down like a rabbit hole that I don't want to go down. But my point is that magic for some of us is an identity. For some of us, it's like an activity. It's a fun thing that we can play with. But what I really want to encourage you to see is, we do magic. Sometimes we do it because we want things, but the truth about wanting things is that, we want things that make us feel good. We wanna feel good, right? That's all basically always the goal, is to feel good, to feel better, to feel not afraid, to feel secure, to feel fulfilled, to feel, connected, to feel, in love and, in harmony with reality, and to feel like, we're contributing something, like our life has meaning. It's all about things that we want to feel. And we seek things, sometimes it's like physical things, sometimes it's interpersonal things. There's things that we seek in order to make us feel the ways that we want to feel. And so always, 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 there's the thing that we're going after, the thing that we're wanting is to feel something. And magic is a really, really, really powerful way to get to that place, to affect your own mind and your own reality, your own experience of reality, to help you be able to feel the things that you are seeking to feel, and also to acquire the things in the outside world that will help you feel that way, and that will feel good to have. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is that whatever reason you're doing magic, whatever reason you're interested in magic, I really want to encourage you to think of it as more than just, like doing rituals and making offerings and those sorts of things. I want to expand it for you, and so that's really what this episode is about. Because the truth is that your actions are magic. Everything that you do is magic. And that's why I always say, like, magic is something that's happening to you all the time, whether you believe it or not, whether you want to or not, because you are always communicating something. You're always in communication with whatever it is. Call it God, call it the universe, call it your own goddamn mind, your higher self, whatever it is. You are in constant communication with it, and your actions and your words are actions, just for the record. Just I want to make that clear. Your words are actions. What you say, to speak, is an action. Um, you are constantly speaking realities and beliefs and identities and theories and values into existence. And so, what is the spell that you're speaking into reality with your words? But it's not just your words, it's your actions. It's your actions. Do you show up for the things that you say that you want? Are you even available for them? When people offer you things that you want, do you accept those things or do you reject them? Are you are you willing to experience discomfort that is associated with change? Because in order to get things, something has to change, right? I mean, it could just be like the thing has to come to us somehow. Somebody hands us the thing that we want. If you're not, sometimes you're not even able to receive like the thing that you're seeking. We sometimes literally just shut down any path that it tries to take to get to us, right? And so part of the magic is to be able to receive things, to willingly receive things that people want to give us, that the universe wants to give us, that reality wants to give us. It's doing the things that we know we need to do to get the things that we want. And sometimes with magic, you know, I talk about like when Layla and I teach sales, for example, we talk about like casting the spell of asking, right? You're casting a spell by asking for the thing that you want. You are literally speaking to somebody else saying, "This is the thing that I want." That is a spell. You are casting a spell on yourself, on everything. That's a spell. And doing that it's a powerful spell too, because it's really sensational usually to ask for the thing that we want, especially from people who may or may not even may have the power to give it to us if they so choose. And maybe they won't. Maybe they won't, but you've casted that spell. And so it's out there. You've put it out there. in a powerful, powerful way because sensation is such a big part of this. Facing sensation. It's really easy to like sit in a ritual and be like, I want $10 million. But go ask a client for $10 million. Those are two very different things, and I'm not suggesting that you should ask a client for $10 million. If you run a kind of a business where that is reasonable, then that makes sense. It could be a smaller number, you know? I'm just saying that what you say matters, and your actions and your words are magic. They always. So, sometimes there's certain things that you can't even have without earning them, right? Like, imagine being a doctor. You can't actually be a doctor without earning being a doctor. Like, you have to go through the training, you have to go through the process of becoming a doctor to become a doctor, right? Um, but an even less obvious example is like, because what I'm trying to say is some things you can't have them without doing the things that are required to get them. Because you not because of like the physical laws of getting the thing, but because of you won't be able to hold it. You won't be able to appreciate it. You won't be able to actually capitalize on having the thing. It's like how lottery winners often like go broke because they couldn't handle it. Um, it's not a great example because it's like cliche and I hate cliches, but it's also not a great example because um, I think it because I think that it's really hard to relate to that. But maybe we can relate to this. If you're married to someone and they're running a massive, super successful business and they die and you inherit the business and you take over the business that they were running. Now you're in charge. You have the business. You're the boss. You became the boss. You got if the thing is to like become the person who's running the business, like you got it. But are you gonna be able to run the business? Are you gonna drive the business into the ground? Are you going to, do you even know what you're doing, right? If you're not because as I've learned multiple times through building multiple businesses and also currently building one that is very different from others that I've built, um, there's so much that you have to go through on the process of building a business that I think are kind of required skills to run a business. And so it's like you kind of get trained in how to do it by going through the motions of doing it. And so if you were just given that business, you wouldn't know what to do with it, and then you wouldn't be able to actually be that thing that you want to be, to have the thing that you want to have. So some things and and this so these are like really big examples, but it can also be really subtle. It's like if you want a certain income or you want a certain relationship, um in order to get that relationship, you have to have the skills required to like build intimacy with somebody, to learn how to trust somebody, to open yourself up, to be vulnerable, to receive somebody else's vulnerability. Like there's all of these things that kind of are necessary to get into that kind of relationship that you might want, um that you have to maintain that relationship. So I hope this is making sense. What I'm saying is doing the work to be able to be vulnerable, to practice being vulnerable with people, to open yourself up to those kinds of relationships. Um, Doing the work to like practice trusting people and not checking up on them and not checking their phones and not, just like all of that stuff is sometime like that is magic. It's part of the magical process of um shifting your mind, shifting yourself to be able to get thing. And you might hear an example in like a relationship thing. You might do all of this with somebody who you think is the one, and you practice, you learn vulnerability, and you put yourself out there and you really trust them, and you really like work those angles with yourself to grow in the ways that you need to grow to be able to have that kind of relationship. And then maybe though that's not actually the person. Maybe you've been barking up the wrong tree and maybe you'd be heartbroken because that relationship will fall apart. But but you've done the work. So now when the real person, with the one that is going to be the one, or the next one comes along, whatever it is that would, if you believe in that there's only one person, I think that, there's a lot of people out there. So when that next person comes, then you are ready and available, and you've done the work, and you did the magic. You did the magic to show yourself, like, yes, I can handle it. Yes, I'm ready for it. Yes, I can do it. So showing up in that way, doing the thing, is magic. It is magic. And this is a very Mars approach, right? It's like you got to do the things and show up for them. But it's more than just about doing the things. It's casting the spell, showing ourselves that yes, this is what I want. When you ask for something, when you go out and try to get something, when you apply to jobs, maybe you're trying to find your dream job and you apply to like 500 jobs and none of them even ever respond to you, but you've put out into the world 500 times. You've cast the spell of asking 500 times. And so maybe like your uncle's friend is going to be like, "Hey, I got a job for you." And you're going to be like, "Wow, it was a total waste for me to do all of those online applications that I did or spent hours and hours doing." But no, not if you see them as you're casting the spell of putting out and being very clear about what you want. And so maybe you wouldn't have heard from your uncle's brother or whatever I said, if you hadn't done that. So seeing these things as magic, allowing them to be magic. And you can even ritualize this stuff, and I definitely recommend that. Yeah. So and on this same note, you can ritualize kind of anything that you need to do that's really mundane. Like you can ritualize the mundane. So if you hate doing dishes, ritualize it. Turn it into a ritual. Light a candle, say a prayer, and then do that as an offering. And you know turn it into something powerful for yourself. That's the beauty of being a magician. You can do that, and you can make it special. Put on special music, create an environment for yourself, put yourself in a special setting in doing that thing, and then you will make it a ritual and get more out of it, and also enjoy it more and feel good, get into that like creative sort of flow and feel connected to something greater than yourself as you're doing really mundane stuff. So, yeah, I recommend thinking more broadly about what you're already doing that you can ritualize and turn into a magical sort of offering, and bring in something bigger around it, and set some intentions, and have goals or whatever. And then also thinking about like things that you're trying to manifest. Sometimes just do the damn thing, and that could get you the thing, even if you want it to come in a more magical way, so that it can come in a more magical way, because you're doing the magic of putting yourself out there. You're doing the magic of casting the spell of saying what it is that you want. And one last thing, this is actually hugely important and kind of where all of this has been going. So, all of this has been leading up to this one final point that I cannot emphasize enough. So, like I said, your words matter, your actions matter, you're always casting spells. And by the way, when you don't do things, when you don't show up for things, um when you like check out in those key moments of opportunity, when you let the opportunities pass you by, that is also powerful magic. That is the powerful magic of, I don't want it that bad. I'm not willing to do what it takes. I don't care about that thing. I prioritize comfort. That's what you're telling the universe. That's what you're telling your higher self. Every time you do that, you're saying, I prioritize comfort. You need to have balance. I'm not saying like go run an ultra marathon or whatever, um, to like prove a point, but thinking about when those opportunities come and you chicken out or check out or go on your screen or whatever it is that you do, whatever your method of escape is, um, you are also casting a spell. And that's not to say that you can't take a break, relax, pass up opportunities that aren't right for you. The way that you do that, though, the way that I recommend doing that is to do it with intention. It's all about intention. So you can say, in this moment, I need to rest myself, and that's my truth. And I'm going to honor my truth by not doing the thing right now. Or, I want to give myself a opportunity to like let down, and I'm going to like eat some cake even though I'm trying to lose weight. Maybe I'm going to eat this cake because I'm just, this is an offering to Venus. I just really want to be like in my body and like eat something yummy, and I need to nourish myself in that way right now, and I'm choosing to do that, and that's totally okay because you're choosing it, you're making a conscious decision. Of course, if you do that all the time, you might not lose the weight that you're trying to lose in this particular example, but thinking about it in terms of like, I'm not saying you have to always be on and always do the thing and always push to the max and da 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 da. What I'm saying is, if you're not going to, make sure that the spell that you're casting is not the spell of lazy, don't want to face it, can't handle discomfort, prioritizing convenience. Because when you cast that spell over and over with your actions and your way of being and the way that you live your life, that's magic. You're creating that reality. That's what you're telling yourself you are. That's what you're telling yourself your priorities are, and that matters. So framing it in a way that's um that's honest and constructive, and being um having authority when you do it. So doing it from a place of like, I'm choosing to do this, and maybe it's a really dumb reason, but I am choosing it and it's okay, and I still care about those other things, but I'm doing this right now because this is what I need right now. Fine. That's fine. That is so different from just compulsively doing the things that are interfering with you getting what you want. So, noticing the difference, having discernment, and just watching yourself. What are the choices that you're making? The choices that you make matter. It matters in terms of who you are telling yourself that you are. And I'm sorry if this lecture has gotten to become a lecture. It wasn't meant to be a lecture. I'm trying to, whatever. But there is still, I went on a tangent again, a little side quest there, an important side quest, but still a side quest. And to get back to the main thing that I wanted to say is that your word, your word is so important. Your word, what you say. And I don't mean like in terms of, you can't say anything negative or you can't complain or any of that. Obviously, I don't recommend that. It's not good magic. But that, by the way, you can also wrap into a like intentional, like, okay, I need to just take a moment and vent, and then I'll stop or whatever. But being true to your word, honoring your word. So the value of your word is everything in magic. And that's what this whole thing was meant to be about. But it's so much more than that because it's everything. It's in everything. It's in how we show up for our lives. Um, but if you lie, if your word has no value, it's like you have no credit. You have no credit with yourself. You have no credit with the universe. Um, you got a low credit score and you got to build that credit score back up. So, for example, if you say you're going to do something, do it. If you're like somebody, I'm a parent. So sometimes with my kids, it's like, the strategy sometimes is to just not make promises that, people make promises out of really good intentions, but if you are not 100% sure that you can follow through, do not make the promise. Um, so if you give your word to something, you gotta follow through. Like, it's like a life and death, okay? That's kinda how I see it. If I make a promise, I have to follow through. If I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it, okay? And there are definitely places where things change, right? Like this podcast. At the beginning, I was like, "I'm gonna release an episode every single week." And then I changed it. After months of that, I was like, "This doesn't work for me anymore. I'm gonna change it." And that's okay. we can make a change. We can make changes. And I did it every week for a while, and then I realized that I needed to make a change, and making a change is what was true for me. So it made sense. And then I told you that I'm going to now have episodes every other Thursday. And I am still releasing a podcast every week, by the way. So that's kind of fun. When I started this podcast, I didn't know I was going to be starting a second podcast. And so I'm still releasing a podcast every single week. Which I did make a promise to Saturn at the beginning of the year that I would. And so I will. There will be no less than one podcast a week. It's just not all going to be this podcast. And and I was intentionally vague about that when I made that promise to Saturn at the beginning of the year, because yeah, I didn't know what was going to happen. So this is the thing, is it was still a big promise, and I'm keeping my promise. It's a big, big promise to show up for a podcast every single week. Um, and I have to keep my word on that. It's non-negotiable. So if I was to break my word, then I reduce the value of my word. And then my words don't have power. My magic loses power. You want to talk about like having power, being a powerful magician. I feel like there's all this hubbub. And I've kind of debunked that, I think, on this podcast, saying that nobody has more power than anybody else. We all have equal power. We all have equal ability to influence our own minds. 100% believe that. But um, any one of us can sabotage ourselves by breaking our word, by not honoring our word, by devaluing our word. Because um, if my word, if I could just break my word, then it doesn't mean anything. What I say doesn't mean anything. You're literally like taking the power out of your own voice when you don't follow through on your word, when you don't do what you say you're going to do, when you break promises, things like that. So, in that sense, be very cautious of what agreements you make, and then keep those agreements. So don't make agreements that you can't keep. And sometimes it's really helpful to kind of assess your life, and maybe have a moment of like, okay, I need to end certain agreements that I've made in the past that are no longer true for me. And it is within your right to do that. And the way that you do that while preserving your word is to communicate clearly that your circumstances have changed, your needs have changed, and you can no longer do that thing that you agreed to. And you communicate it to the people who it's relevant to. And so it's not like, anything you've ever agreed to is a lifelong contract. Absolutely not. If you sign a contract though that has a certain time frame, which they usually do, then and there's always still a way to get out of that contract. So thinking about, what are you signing on to? What are you agreeing to? And keeping your word. Um yeah, and sometimes you just have to break, like, sometimes you fucked up and you can't keep your word for whatever reason, and um you just have to repair and just start again and keep your word and vow to keep your word and then just do it. Um yeah, that's how you become magical, you know, through and through. We bring it into our everyday life. We ritualize the things that we need to do that we don't wanna do, which only expands us. Um, we honor our word. We absolutely honor our word. And we show ourselves that we truly want the things that we want, that we're willing to do what it takes to get the things that we want, and to even have those things, by showing up in the moment, and being willing to step into discomfort. That is kind of like the number one thing that I hope I made clear. It's like true desire. When you truly desire something, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable to get it, because it is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable to get the things that you want. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to have them, until your baseline changes and you adjust and you adapt and then it becomes normal. And then you can say, yes, thank you, more, please. Okay. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I will see you in the next one.